They told her she didn't belong in the cockpit. They said she was just an observer, a faint shadow behind the real pilots. But when the sky collapsed, when the captain collapsed unconscious over the Pacific, Maya Ellison didn't ask for permission. She grabbed the controls, faced the storm, and brought the whole crew home. This is the story of a woman underestimated, who made the world look twice. Are you ready to fly with her at Travis Air Force Base in California? Early sunlight cuts through the row of C-130 Hercules planes lined up on the tarmac. The roar of engines fills the air, the faint smell of jet fuel lingering. Today is routine, a standard transport flight hauling military supplies to Okinawa, Japan. But for Lieutenant Maya Ellison, age 31, this is no ordinary mission. It's a test. Maya steps into the hangar, her Air Force uniform crisp, hair tied back, eyes sharp but calm. She logged 2,400 flight hours and piloted Boeing 737s through Atlantic storms as a civilian. But here, in the world of the U.S. Air Force, she's a rookie. 2 years in, she hasn't earned the aircraft commander title, the badge of a pilot trusted to lead a mission. Today, she's assigned as a flight support officer, a support role with no right to touch the controls. In the pre-flight briefing room, Major Holden, the mission's captain, stands before the planning board. He's a seasoned pilot, his voice low and firm. As Maya enters, he glances her way, gives a slight nod, but says nothing more. The rest of the crew co-pilot and flight engineer shuffle through paperwork. The room hums with focus, tinged with a hint of tension. Holden turns to Maya, his gaze unguarded, appraising. "We've got our pilots," he says, even in a voice. "You're here to observe. Simulators aren't the same as real wind. Today, just do your job." His words sting like a quiet slap. Maya doesn't reply. She nods, lips pressed tight, and takes a seat at the end of the table. Inside, a flare of heat rises. She's landed a 737 safely through a storm with near zero visibility. She's held a cockpit steady when the fuel gauge flashed red. But here, to those around her, she's just an assistant, a dim shadow trailing the real pilots. As the crew heads to the tarmac, Maya walks last. She eyes the C-130 ahead, its silver-gray frame gleaming in the sun. She knows every inch of it, from the pressurization system to how the yoke responds in a crosswind. But today, she can't touch it. She can only watch. In the cockpit, Holden and the co-pilot run pre-flight checks. Maya sits in the jump seat behind them, with the checklist in hand. The radio crackles. Ground control clears them for takeoff. Engines roar. The plane rolls forward. As the C-130 lifts off, Maya feels the familiar shudder of the airframe, the pulse of the engines syncing with her own heartbeat. But she sits still, silent, eyes tracking Holden's every move on the controls. She knows she's good. She knows she can do more. But in this moment, she's just an observer, sidelined, underestimated. And then, the flight begins. The C-130 Hercules roars through the sky, slicing through thin clouds over the Pacific. Inside the cockpit, the air feels heavy, not from altitude, but from the tense silence between three people. Major Holden, the captain, sits in the left seat, hands adjusting the yoke with the precision of someone with thousands of flight hours. Captain Reese, the co-pilot, sits to his right, eyes glued to the instrument panel, occasionally jotting notes. And Maya Ellison, lieutenant, remains in the back, her role limited to recording and reporting, a silent shadow in the cockpit. Holden breaks the quiet, his voice steady but commanding. "Reese, check the alternate landing plan. If anything goes wrong at Okinawa, we'll divert to Yokota." Reese nods, flips through his documents, and starts reading off data. Maya listens, her mind automatically running through scenarios. She knows Yokota studied its terrain and crosswinds back in flight school. But she stays silent. No one asks her opinion. Reese turns to Holden, his tone laced with a hint of mockery. "Lieutenant Ellison, have you ever flown into Yokota or just seen it in the Sims?" He chuckles, as if it's just a playful jab. But Maya feels the edge behind it. She meets his gaze, unflinching. "I haven't flown into Yokota, Captain, but I know how to land a C-130 there if it comes to it." Reese raises an eyebrow but says nothing. Holden glances over his shoulder, his eyes cold. "Nobody asked how you'd fly. Lieutenant, just report the procedures correctly." His words are a wall, shoving Maya back into her place. She doesn't react. She nods, hands still on her checklist, eyes scanning numbers, but inside she catalogs everything, every word, every action, every detail on the panel. As the plane settles at 24,000 feet, Maya starts checking systems out of habit, though no one asked. She notices a small reading on the display cabin pressure fluctuating slightly, barely noticeable, but enough to make her frown. She double-checks, comparing it to earlier data. Something's off. She speaks up, voice calm but clear. "Major cabin pressure's dropping. It's slow but steady. We should check the pressurization system." Holden doesn't turn. He shakes his head. "System's fine, Lieutenant. It's just a normal fluctuation. Don't complicate things." Reese chimes in, his tone condescending. "You're new here, Ellison. Don't jump to conclusions." Maya goes quiet. She doesn't argue, but she doesn't let it go. Her hand moves over the checklist, noting the current pressure reading. She knows, in the cockpit, instinct often proves right before the data does. She learned that flying through storms, when gut feeling was the only thing keeping the plane aloft. But here, her instincts are dismissed. She doesn't belong. Not a lead pilot. Not someone I trusted. Time passes, and the engine's steady hum is like the plane's heartbeat. Holden and Reese talk routes, weather, everything except Maya's input. She sits there, eyes locked on the panel, ears tuned to every sound from the aircraft. She knows if something happens, she won't be caught off guard. She's used to being underestimated, but she's also used to being ready. And then, in the quiet of the flight, something shifts. Not a loud noise, not a red alert, just a feeling. A subtle anomaly is hiding in the numbers and sounds. Maya senses it. She doesn't know exactly what it is, but she knows it's coming. She only hopes Holden and Reese will notice before it's too late. The C-130 Hercules cruises over the Pacific, now past the halfway mark to Okinawa. The sky outside is clear, but inside the cockpit, the air grows heavier. The engines hum steadily, yet something feels off, lurking in the quiet. Maya Ellison, seated in the jump seat behind, senses it. Not a sound, not a vibration, but a cold instinct honed from brutal flights in her past. Major Holden, the captain, pilots with the confidence of a veteran. He checks the radar, trading brief words with Captain Reese, the co-pilot, about wind speeds and the route. Maya watches silent, eyes fixed on the instrument panel. She spots something small, the oxygen pressure gauge flickering, subtle but unnatural. She cross-checks it against earlier readings. The numbers drop slowly, almost negligible, but enough to tighten her nerves. She glances at Holden. He's wiping his brow, sweat glistening despite the cool cockpit. He frowns slightly, as if struggling to focus. Maya notices, but Reese seems oblivious, still studying charts, muttering about arrival times. Maya speaks, her voice calm but firm. Major, are you okay? The oxygen gauge is dropping. It could be tied to cabin pressure. Holden turns, his eyes sharp but weary. I'm fine. Lieutenant, just warm. Gauges fluctuate. Don't worry. Reese cuts in, impatience in his tone. Ellison, stick to your checklist. We've got this. Maya doesn't reply. She knows arguing now is pointless, but she doesn't stop. Her hands move over the auxiliary panel, checking system data. Cabin pressure, as she suspected, is dropping slowly. Not enough to trigger an alarm, but enough to pose a risk if ignored. She jots down the numbers, her mind racing. If the leak continues, oxygen levels will dip, impairing the crew before they can land. She looks at Holden again. His breathing is heavier, though he hides it. Sweat now streaks his temples. Maya's pulse quickens. She knows what's happening. The slow pressure leak she warned about is taking effect. She speaks again, her voice steady but weighted. Major, we should descend urgently or turn back. Cabin pressure is unstable. I can check the oxygen system. Holden shakes his head, his voice weaker but stubborn. We're not turning around over a minor fluctuation. This is the lead pilot business. Lieutenant, Reese snaps, his tone sharp. You're overstepping. Ellison, sit down. Maya bites her lip but stays silent. She turns back to the screen, eyes locked on the oxygen gauge. The numbers keep falling, slow but steady. She knows if they don't act, consequences will hit fast. But she has no authority. No one listens. She's just the observer, pushed to the sidelines. In that moment, Holden suddenly slumps forward, clutching his chest. He gasps, his face pale. Reese spins toward him, voice panicked. Major, what's wrong? Holden doesn't answer, only shakes his head faintly. Maya doesn't wait. She unbuckles her seatbelt and stands, her eyes scanning the panel. Captain Reese, check the Major's oxygen mask. I'll handle the system. Reese glares but complies, his hands shaking as he grabs the mask. Maya doesn't look at him. She focuses on the data, her fingers moving across the controls with the speed of someone who's done this hundreds of times. She knows time is running out. The pressure leak, though small, is pushing them to the edge, and if Holden doesn't pull through, everything will collapse. She glances out the window, the deep blue sea stretching endlessly below. They're in the middle of the Pacific, hundreds of miles from land, no room for mistakes. Maya takes a deep breath, her mind sharp as a blade. She doesn't know what's coming next, but she knows one thing: she's ready, whether they trust her or not. At 24,000 feet, the cockpit of the C-130 Hercules turns into a silent battlefield. Major Holden, the captain, lies unconscious, head slumped in his seat, oxygen mask loosely draped across his face. Captain Reese, the co-pilot, panics, hands trembling as he tries to radio. Yokota, this is Bravo 9-0. We have an emergency, captain's down. His voice cracks, the signal garbled, and the plane shakes hard, as if the sky itself is raging. Maya Ellison doesn't wait a second longer. She unbuckles her seatbelt and strides to the left seat, the captain's seat. No hesitation. She sits, hands gripping the yoke, eyes scanning the controls. The radar screen flashes, the oxygen gauge signals danger, and the plane veers off course in turbulent air. Reese spins toward her, his voice nearly a shout. You're not authorized to sit there. Ellison, what are you doing? Maya doesn't look at him. Her eyes lock on the panel's numbers, her voice icy but razor sharp. I'm not sitting, I'm getting us home. Before Reese can react, she moves. The left hand is on the yoke, and the right hand is flipping the emergency pressurization switch. She knows if they don't descend now, The entire crew will black out from lack of oxygen. The plane bucks violently, wind howling against the metal frame like a warning. Maya stays calm. Her mind is a precision machine. She lowers altitude from 24,000 feet to 18, then 15, careful not to lose control. "Reese, check Major Holden's condition," she orders, her tone leaving no room for debate. "And get Yokota back on. Tell them we're descending." Reese, still stunned, complies. He checks Holden's oxygen mask, then fumbles with the radio. "Yokota, Bravo 90. We're descending emergently, requesting ground support." Maya ignores his clumsiness. She focuses on the radar, calculating the distance to Yokota. Over 300 miles, and in this state, she'll have to fly manually, no autopilot. For the next 17 minutes, Maya commands the C-130 like it's part of her. She stabilizes cabin pressure, navigates through turbulent air, and keeps the plane on an invisible runway in the sky. Every move is precise, every decision weighed in a split second. She doesn't think about not being allowed in this seat. She doesn't think about the earlier taunts. She thinks only of landing safely. Reese, now silent, just watches. He says nothing, doesn't argue, doesn't help. His eyes flicker between awe and shame. Maya doesn't care. She doesn't need his approval. She needs the radar, the yoke, and absolute focus outside. Clouds thicken, a sign they're nearing land. Maya checks the fuel gauge enough to reach Yokota, but no margin. She adjusts the pitch, preparing for the approach. The radio crackles, and Yokota's ground controller comes through clearly. "Bravo 90. Runway 18 is clear. Crosswind 10 knots. Report status." Maya responds, her voice steady as if reading a routine log. "Yokota, Bravo 90. The captain unconscious. I'm in control. ETA 20 minutes. No tremble, no doubt." She's taken command, not because anyone allowed it, but because there was no other choice. The plane keeps descending, engines roaring like a vow. Maya glances out the window, Japan's hills faintly visible in the distance. She knows the real test lies ahead, landing a C-130 in an emergency, with a crew that didn't trust her and a captain still out cold, but she's not afraid. She's been ready for this, even if no one saw it. The C-130 Hercules cuts through the final clouds. Yokota Air Base coming into view. Runway 18 stretching like a gray ribbon amid Japan's hills. Inside the cockpit, Maya Ellison remains in the left seat, hands on the yoke, eyes glued to the radar. The plane shudders lightly in crosswinds, but she adjusts the pitch with the precision of someone who's lived in cockpits her whole life. Captain Reese, the co-pilot, sits silently, hands on his thighs, and gazes emptily. Major Holden lies unconscious, breathing faintly through his oxygen mask. Maya has no time to dwell on what's happened, on overstepping her role, on the earlier taunts, or on Reese's stunned stare. She focuses on one thing: landing safely. The radio crackles, the ground controller's voice clear. "Bravo 90, cleared to land. Wind 12 knots, heading 270, medical team standing by." She responds, her voice calm as if still watered. "Yokota, Bravo 90. Roger, preparing to land." She reduces speed, lowers the landing gear, and adjusts the flaps. The plane tilts slightly, aligning with the runway. Crosswinds jostle the airframe, but Maya holds the yoke steady, her hands moving swiftly yet deliberately. She knows one small mistake could unravel everything. Outside, Yokota's ground crew is ready, ambulances and fire trucks lined up along the runway. They know it's an emergency, but one knows the pilot is a lieutenant never cleared to command. Maya doesn't think about that. She sees only the runway, the numbers on the panel, and her own pulse sinking with the engine's roar. As the wheels touch down, a screech echoes, white smoke rising from the tires. Maya keeps the plane straight, slowing it steadily, and finally stops at the runway's end. The engines wind down, leaving a near-suffocating silence in the cockpit. She removes her headset, sets it on the console, and stands. Not a word, not a glance at Reese. She checks Holden one last time, ensuring his oxygen mask is secure, then opens the cockpit door. Below, technicians and medics rush forward. The aircraft door swings open, Japanese sunlight flooding in, and a young technician chokes back a sob as Holden is carried out on a stretcher. Maya steps off last, her uniform still crisp, her eyes holding no trace of pride. She doesn't wait for applause or thanks. She did what had to be done. Reese follows her down but says nothing. He avoids her gaze, head bowed, as if carrying an unseen weight. Medics load Holden into an ambulance, and Maya stands there, watching the C-130 rest quietly on the tarmac. She feels the ground crew's stares, curious, amazed, but she doesn't acknowledge them. An hour later, in a waiting room at Yokota, Maya sits alone, holding a cold coffee. Word comes that Holden woke up after oxygen treatment. He'll recover, but it'll take time. Reese appears at the door, hesitating, but he stays silent. Maya doesn't look up. She doesn't need his apology or his validation. Then a gruff voice breaks the quiet. "Lieutenant Ellison?" It's Holden, in a wheelchair, pushed by a nurse. His face is still pale, but his eyes are bright and sharp. He looks at her, not with the old scrutiny, but with quiet respect. "Next time," he says, voice low but clear. "You take the left seat from the start. Don't let me get in your way." Maya nods, the faintest smile curving her lips. She says nothing. No words are needed. That moment, between them, is enough. She stands and walks out, leaving Holden and Reese in silence. Outside, the C-130 stands like a witness to what just happened. Maya looks at it, takes a deep breath, and moves on. She knows the story isn't over, but now, she's left her mark not with words, but with action. A week after the Yokota incident, the C-130 Hercules is back at Travis Air Force Base, California, under a deep summer sky. The plane sits quietly in the hangar, its silver-gray body bearing the marks of that fateful flight. Maya Ellison walks into the base, her uniform crisp, but her steps now carry a different weight. No one speaks as she passes, but the eyes of colleagues, technicians, pilots, ground crew follow her, a mix of curiosity and respect. In the commander's office, a brief meeting takes place. Maya's file lies on the table, next to a detailed report of Bravo 900's flight. Major Holden, recovered but still frail, sits in the corner. He says little, only silently signs a document, affirming what Maya did. Each stroke of his pen is a quiet declaration. She earned this. No one in the room, neither the commanding officer nor the staff, questions it. The file is sent to the Air Force Command that day. With a special note, recommend review for aircraft commander certification. Maya isn't at the meeting. She's outside the hangar, standing before the C-130. Her hand brushes the plane's skin, feeling the cool metal under her fingertips. She doesn't think about the Pacific sky, the moment she gripped the yoke, or Holden's gaze when he woke. She thinks only of the flights ahead, the runways she'll conquer, not to prove herself, but because that's where she belongs. A young technician, the one who cried when the plane landed at Yokota, approaches. He hesitates, then points to the pilot's seat. "Lieutenant," he says, voice shaky. "They just added something up there for you." Maya frowns, climbing into the cockpit. Beneath the left seat, where she sat in those life or death minutes. A small line is hand-etched. You don't need permission, just enough altitude. She stands there, staring at the words, and for the first time in days, she smiles. Not a triumphant grin, but the smile of someone who's found her place. She didn't need anyone to hand her the controls. She took them, not with words, but with action, with resolve, with quiet courage. The next day, Maya receives official notice she's been summoned for aircraft commander training. No ceremony, no speeches, but she doesn't need them. She needs only the cockpit, the yoke, and the open sky. As she steps out of the hangar, sunlight hits her face, illuminating her strong features. She looks up at the sky, where other planes take off, leaving long white trails. She knows every flight from now on will carry new meaning, not because she's been recognized, but because she proved that in defining moments, character and skill always prevail. Maya Ellison's story doesn't end here. It continues on runways, in cockpits, and among the clouds. But at Travis Air Force Base, the inscription under the pilot's seat remains. A permanent reminder some heroes don't need medals, just a chance to fly. Maya Ellison's story isn't just about a flight. It's about courage, resilience, and the strength of those who work in silence. She proved that sometimes you don't need anyone's permission to stand up and do what's right. You just need to believe in yourself. If this story moved you, drop a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more inspiring stories. Let's spread incredible journeys like Maya's together. See you in the next video.